Hey guys, hey Levi, hey Michael, how you doing, man?
Hey, Shadi.
Is that an air conditioner I see in your room up there?
Yeah, I'm in the living room, so like.
Oh man,
Yeah.
you're lucky to have
Cold
air
air.
conditioning. I'm jealous. Man, I see I've got the same ceiling fan as everyone else, but it does jack shit for me.
If I was in my bedroom, I wouldn't have. So.
Yeah. You want to see Chris? Look. You see? Say hi. You wait? No, it's not. Levi, do you have air conditioning?
Yes, but it breaks a lot.
Oh. Why? Because you use it too much?
I guess. That
No.
and it has like a freon leak or something. So
Well, that don't sound good.
either I fix it or I'll have to replace the whole unit. But it's like freaking 10 grand.
Can't you just get like a window unit and like just make it a little easier, or no?
Yeah, but then I'll have to buy multiple, and in the long run it'll be the same cost.
Dude, fuck everyone else in the family. You should just get it yourself. Right? Maybe. What about you, Karen? Do you have air conditioning?
Hi, I do, but I don't use it because I don't want to waste electricity, so I use my fan.
It's not the same.
I know.
Right?
If it's like super hot, then I turn it on, but other than that, I don't really need it.
I'm a baby. I mean, I don't know. Air conditioning is so nice. What about you, Andrew? Do you have air conditioning?
I do, but it costs a lot to run, though.
Ah, you did the Karen philosophy, huh?
Yeah, I get in trouble.
Philosophy.
If anything, we turn on our living room AC, and then we all like sit in the living room together.
See,
So it's not
I
like
say
separate.
I say this although because like I'm doing, my wife and I are like hunting for houses right now, and we live in Manila, and I can't tell you how annoying it is. Like you go to a house where they obviously don't have air conditioning, and the real estate agent's always like, "Oh, you don't need it. Let the crosshairs go through." Like, why? Like, I want air conditioning. I don't understand why I gotta let the wind be my air conditioning. I don't know. But then, I go to my office and it's super cold. And my wife goes to her office and it's super cold. And then the kids just play outside. So, like, maybe no one needs air conditioning. I don't know. Let's see who else is. So for our class, I'll send an email to everyone, but they just announced not too long ago that we have to stay off campus for the next 4 weeks additionally. So this looks to be a never-ending process of being off campus. If any of you haven't been on campus, it's like a ghost town. They still don't have the building finished, the creative media building. They're still working on that like outdoor learning space that's supposed to be by the C building. And yeah, the empty campus. Okay, I'll give people about another minute here. I just finished watching the debate. That was really exhausting. I thought my wife and I fought a lot. That was like nothing.
They can't.
least we-
They keep talking over each other.
Well, exactly. I told my wife, I was like, at least we listen to each other. Like we might be both impassioned about what we're fighting
Chiding.
about, but at least we listened.
If you
No.
if you watch like a debate from like the 1950s, they're so articulate, they're so calm and grounded. And nowadays it's just they can't shut up.
It's like, you know, it's like they probably like bow to each other or something back then. But yeah, it's just a bunch of fighting, name calling, both sides.
Two rich white men trying to argue about the American people. Oh,
yeah,
please.
or that I'm more authentic. I mean, obviously we have our, like, we obviously probably all like one more than the other, but I don't think that debate changed anyone's minds, because at the end, that thing looked like I don't know, like a trash can on fire. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
I think politics is almost done. We got maybe a few more elections until the American public is just fed up with this bullshit already.
Actually, you know what the nicest thing about moving here was to Hawaii is I don't have to see so many TV commercials, at least,
Yes.
about that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't think I've never, it's like one of those things, right? Like someone must have really like tricked someone into saying the reason why you're losing is because you're not running enough commercials, right? Like whoever like, said that, like Trump, if you only ran more commercials, then everything would be fixed for you in the state of Hawaii. Everyone
Have you
would
ever
vote
like
for you.
wondered who are those commercials for? Like, does anyone really watch that and be like,
That's what I
oh,
mean.
fuck,
Or
I'm
maybe
gonna
it's
vote
just
for
like,
Trump now?
or maybe it like reinforces you, right? So like you feel like guilty if you don't vote for him.
Maybe. I
You
think
know,
that makes more sense.
You know, like,
It's a reinforcement.
yeah. Pierce, can I have that? Pierce, stop that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the, you know, like right now, my wife and I again are doing this house hunting process, and we've got these two rival, like, lenders that we're trying to like bring down the, interest rate with. And I mean, I told my wife, like, I don't owe allegiance to anyone. They don't owe allegiance to me. I just want the lowest rate, and I want to be treated fairly. If you can't do that,
Right.
so that's why in this case, right, like it's not anyone like anyone's like, oh, I voted for, you know, Trump in the last election, so I have to keep voting for him now. I mean, I don't know. I actually think I don't know. It's hard to really say what next month will bring. I'm happy to be living. There are things that really piss me off about living in Hawaii. This is something that makes me happy about living in Hawaii. Is I don't have to deal with so much. But I think what I have learned in the past 2 years is the negative parts that come from living in what's largely a one-party state, right? Is
Right.
that it's not like one is more saintly than the other. It's just, you know, it's probably what if we lived in Arkansas or Alabama, it's probably what, you know, Republicans are there.
I'm actually surprised how many Trump flags I see around. I don't see any Biden flags. I don't think I've ever seen a Biden flag.
I don't think I have. No, I mean, I see when I drive my mother-in-law to Chinatown to go grocery shopping on Saturday morning, I usually see, like, we drive down Baratania. So we drive past Planned Parenthood, and there's always the protesters in front of the Planned Parenthood. And then when you pass the Capitol, they're either on Baratania or they're on King Street, right? It's like, you know, pickup trucks, flags, that kind of thing. But you're right, I see more. Probably can, right? Like, you don't need to whip up the troops maybe as much, right? Or I don't know. Someone smarter than me probably knows the answer. Okay, let's see here. Anyone else waiting to come in? No one else waiting to come in? Okay, so let's start. Basically, we should all be at a point where I'm going to share my screen here. We should all be at a point where we're all doing the Bloomberg market concept. You should know how to get into it at this point. You shouldn't have any questions about that. And you don't
What's
have
up with
to do it. Go on.
Shining, I have a question.
Sure.
The Bloomberg modules, like for some reason, it's like 20-second videos, and you got to keep pressing next. Is there any way I can just let it flow through, or no?
Nope. I've tried to do it myself. Nope. There's nothing you can do. And the problem that you run into is if you keep getting into that philosophy like I have, you'll get to the check-in thing, like the quiz thing, and you'll end up answering the wrong thing.
I
So
keep
it makes me look.
all my answers are wrong.
Well, so I did it with bonds, which I obviously know pretty well, and like I got like an 85%. I was like, oh yeah, it's because I keep hitting like next, but then I was hitting D.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no way to fast forward it. The only thing I can do is I can say you can like catch up on texts or emails while you're doing it, and just let
Do
it play in
those
the
questions
background.
mean anything in regards to the class? Like, if I get them wrong, am I going to get like a bad grade or something?
No, because I
Okay.
mean, even if you, because again, in honesty, if you look at mine, I mean, I know the material, but mine shows like an 85%. Some cases, it's just like I'm just trying to plow through it, and I'm just trying to answer it really fast.
Yeah.
In other cases, I just misanswered it. So most of the time, I'm not presuming that it means that you don't know what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, you're really the only one that it's going to matter for. So, yeah.
Okay.
What about getting
that,
a certificate?
Is that a like that
Yeah, so for
certificate,
getting the certificate, I think my understanding is that you have to get a 75%, I think. But I actually am unsure. So I'm working through the modules right now. I'm working through fixed income. I'm unsure of whether there's going to be a big test at the end or whether the little quizzes you're doing throughout are the actual exam. I'm not sure. Does anyone know?
Oh man, I hope not.
I haven't got through all of it yet. I just worked on economic indicators and a little bit of.
Oh, just wait till you get the fixed income. Fixed income is the beast.
Can we
I
skip?
was gonna
Can we like? Do we have to
Go
do
on.
it in order?
No, you don't
No,
have to
you-
do it in
you-
order. No, you don't have to
you
do
can
it in
skip
order.
around.
You can do it in any order you want.
I haven't skipped around.
Can everyone see my screen? Yeah.
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 Okay. I was going to show you mine here. In mine, yes, I'm in about the middle of fixed income. In our case, I'd like us to at least get largely through this in the coming weeks. Again, pace it as you want, but this is the easier thing, I think, because you're just like playing it. And the questions aren't difficult. You just have to be focused. And it's hard to, as Russell pointed out, when you're doing like 30-second videos and you have to keep hitting next, But I will say this. What's probably most useful is usually like the last slide for each thing, because they give you that review of all the codes, all the things you can use in the functions that you can use in Bloomberg. So that's, I mean, I find it useful.
Although I will add this, if you're getting the section quizzes in the
Yeah.
videos, once you answer the question, you cannot unanswer the question. So just be careful. That's the
Correct. Yep.
what
No.
they
I
use.
Oh,
agree.
really?
Yep. No, you
Yeah.
cannot.
Once you answer it, you can't go back and re-answer it.
Nope. Exactly.
All right. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way it is. But outside of that, I think though there must be some way that people can retake it. That can't be like the only. Like that's what makes me think like maybe there's like an end exam or something when you get through the first 4, because the first 4 is what you need to do to get the certificate. So I'm gonna try to get through it this week so that we can kind of see what happens. But again, not to raise the bar or lower the bar. In my cases, I've been averaging about 80% on these. I think there's one like subpart where I got like a 75%. But again, if you're just trying to get through it and you're not like really focused, it's easy to misanswer something. There's no judgment on my part that you don't know what you don't know what's happening. Don't worry about that. Most important thing is this is a binary condition. You get the certification or not. To get the certification, you only need to get through equities on the screen that I'm showing you here. You only need to get through equities to get to it. I just gave us all 8 because this is a certification and analysis class, and it's kind of on us to, I think, go through everything. Okay, that's the first thing. So you should be all working on this. You should know at least what it is, how to do it. Whether you're doing it or not, I guess, is a different issue. That's what you would have to answer to if you're not. But cheers. What is going on, buddy? Okay, 1 second here. I'm gonna send this really quick to Michael Frizz. And we should be okay. 1 second. Okay. The other thing, though, that's important, but is perhaps a little bit more long-term, is the CFA modules thing. So again, with Bloomberg, really, again, our goal is just to get the certification. To do that, you got to do the first 4. You don't need to be logging into Bloomberg a lot. So if you took this course and you don't care that much about Bloomberg, or you don't like logging in, or you don't understand it, or you don't care, I'm not going to be able to convince you. I hope to. And I would hope that going through the modules would convince you. But you don't need to be an expert actually at Bloomberg to do it, because as at least 3 of you have indicated to me, which I would agree, you actually learn quite a great deal about just economics and finance in general by doing it. So by doing the modules. I've even learned a few things that I've kind of forgotten back in the past. So I think there's something to be said for, it's kind of a nice, for those of you who are seniors, it's kind of a nice capstone. And again, as I kind of indicate here in this slide, it's useful because the Bloomberg system is a powerful system, and you should have a sense of like what it all does. And the one thing it does do is does all the things that help you understand how equities and bonds are responding to inflation, how to forecast things. It gives you a lot of stuff. And to get that certification, you don't have to log into Bloomberg. You just have to go through all of those little videos. Any questions about the Bloomberg part?
All I gotta say is it's kind of hard to hear you. It's not. It's
Okay.
not the kids. It's the audio. Something's like muffled.
Okay, let me. Is it easier to hear me this way?
It's way clearer now. Whatever you just did.
Okay. Let me find. I'm gonna go upstairs and talk clearly into this. 1 second. Oh, he's doing some work. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm going to. Oh, I know how to do this. I know exactly how to do this. Okay, 1 second. This part's important. Okay. I'm going to. 1 second, everybody.
Do you want us to launch Bloomberg? I'm launching it right now.
You can if you want to. Part of what I'm going to talk about here. Can you guys hear me okay if I'm talking like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Again, so, and in this case, Russell did the exact right thing here. Just interrupt me if you can't hear me. There's no point in recording a video if nothing can be heard. Okay, let me just make sure there's no one waiting to come in here. Okay. Okay, so some of you can be logging in here. I just want to say a few quick things about the CFA modules, and then I want to get into the topic. And once I get into the topic, when I start this, I think it might be useful if you have Bloomberg up, if you want to see some of the things that I kind of was just kind of quickly playing around with. So for the CFA modules, again, I'm making the videos. I think I'm up through the econ videos right now. My lower level class has their exam right now, so I just had to, I'm grading their exams. And instead of reflection papers, I did videos. So I have to watch these like 2-minute videos that everyone did. So, so I'm just kind of getting through that. But I'll get back to making the videos. The videos I make, though, are not the most important thing. Really, the most important thing, as I kind of indicate on the slide, is that you're working through the learning ecosystem and you're doing the certification. Again, it's hard for me to demand. I think it'd be unfair of me to demand that everyone gets this done by the end of the semester. I think that's unreasonable. But as I kind of emphasize right here in the first bullet point, almost all of you are going to be graduating into a really like fucked up labor market. And you basically, you know, for those of you staying, especially on the islands, like you've got all those Manoa kids that you have to compete against, right? And so they might get desperate and move on out to the west side, right?
Ding, I just want to say thank you for saying that, because most teachers don't have the guts to say that.
No, it's true. It's absolutely true. Like, I mean, I even look at like, you know, the labor market for PhD economists, and there's really smart people out there. And the one guy that I talked to that just got his PhD, I think he's probably smarter than me. And he's like, I don't know, I might teach high school next year, right? I mean, a bad labor market could just like really like, you know, screw over a generation. So, I mean, if I were you and I were in your shoes, all of you, I mean, again, I'm not holding your feet to the fire on this. If you want me to, I happily will, and I can be I can harass you about it. But, you know, getting at least a Bloomberg certification at least gives you something to talk about, right? At least gives you something to put on your resume rather than like assistant vice president of the, you know, traffic safety club on campus, right? I don't know, making up a club, right? But like, there's lots of, you know, dumb little clubs where you can add your like name as a title, right? But just like all those things, right? You don't want to just list the title, you want to list what you actually did, right? And just like with this Bloomberg certification, you could say you got certified, but that then also gives you a chance then to say, what did you actually have to do to get certified, right? Is that you had to take this, you know, you had to answer these exams and go through all these modules. It was part of a course where you also did all this other stuff. You know, it gets the person to talking about it, right? And gets you more known than the kid at Manoa who, you know, just got, you know, all A minuses in all of his classes. The grades are important, but you got to have something that you can say, right? You need to have some like nuggets of like, you know, data, for instance, right? So, you know, if you have a job interview, you know, I post my lectures up here, just steal my pictures and just say, hey, you know, if I want to understand this piece of data, like today I'm going to talk about inflation with all of you. You could say, well, you might remember, you know, to the job recruiter, you might remember that this is what inflation is, CPI. But in actuality, it doesn't do this, right? Let's look at how it is, right? You get the person to thinking, and it's a little bit better than the kid at Manoa who just knows CPI, and that's where the story starts and ends. You know, so again, you're going to get as much out of this course as you put into it. Getting that CFA certification, if you ended the course by getting that CFA certification, you really will set yourself up for something. I can't imagine that you wouldn't be able to find an employer, even on a unpaid basis, that wouldn't take you on for you to get the experience that you need to turn it into something else, as long as you had that, you know, CFA Investment Professional certification. Because you could basically say, like, it's the only certification that's open to an undergrad to take, and you got it, right? I mean, And it's
Wait,
something
Shining.
that, yeah,
So that's what the title that you get from this is called, the CFA Investment Professional.
exactly. Yep, it's the investment professional.
Okay,
So
I was trying to wonder what that was called because I'm
Yep.
editing my resume right now and I gotta put in progress stuff on
Yep.
there.
So CFA Investment Professional. So the CFA Institute only offers 3 certifications. The one is the CFA exam that we all kind of know of, which is 3 exams taken over at least one a year, right? To get CFA designation. The other one they offer is for someone who has industry experience. They offer something called a CIPM, certification in something professional management or something, some CIPM. So you offer CFA, CIPM, but for both of those, to be a CFA, you have to have industry experience. To get a CIPM, you have to have industry experience in addition to passing the exams. But for the CFA investment professional, you do not. And again, all you have to then do is you could find First Island Insurance will hire you, right? Because if they have to pay for you to take your Series 7 and at least your Series 66 exams, well, they're already going to know you can pass an intensive exam because you did the CFA Investment Professional one. They just want to make sure you're not going to flake out after they spent $2,000 in training you to take the exam, all right? And if you can say, well, I already passed this pretty intensive exam, you're at least
Well,
giving them something.
What would the acronym be for this license? Or is it a license or certificate?
CFA.
It's a CFA investment professional. So I don't know what, I don't exactly know what we would, let's see here. So sorry, not investment professional, investment foundations. So you've only got 3 programs: CFA program, CIPM program, and investment foundations program. So that's what we're looking at here. And again, it's because really the hardest for those of you who are starting to think about the job market in this kind of shitty situation that you're all stuck in. I don't know. CFA Institute lists these 3 things as the benefits, but that's not what I would really see as the benefit. The biggest benefit I would see is you've given the employer a reason to take a chance on you, right? Because every 22-year-old undergraduate graduating is, cocky as all hell, thinking that they're the greatest thing, and who needs those old fuddy-duddies that, are in the office. You got to somehow, put something out there that makes them want to take a chance on you. And unless you know them or your family knows the person, right? Or you have the connections based on where you went to high school, right? But, I mean, what are you gonna say, right? For all of you guys that lived in Couple A and went to Campbell, right? Everyone went to Campbell. So I don't know. The
And
only way
also,
you're gonna really,
Shannon,
the only way you're gonna
also
distinguish it,
as more
yeah, go on.
as more people graduate every single year, that's more people with degrees. So the supply and demand imbalance grows, right?
Well, it does. And I guess the thing I saw today was they were saying that applications to business school right now are at like an all-time high. So like obviously
Right.
everyone's like hunkering down and saying, I'm not going to look for work. I'm going to go get an expensive degree and go in more debt, which I would
Right.
never tell anyone get a degree because you don't know what else to do. I'm giving you something here. I mean, this is one thing where, again, I think it would be very difficult to not be able to find something, even if it's unpaid, because all you have to do, I know it kind of sucks to have to say it, right? But even if you got to take on an unpaid position for a few months and you get it because you had this kind of thing,
Right.
eventually, if you're good enough, they're going to take you on. You know, and it is true. I mean, your challenge for all of you is how do you take an experience where you don't have any field experience, where you're not tied, you know, that's why kind of internships are so important and why so many of them turn into jobs is because, I mean, I think of all the bad people I've hired, right, and the good people I've hired, and it wasn't always obvious from just a resume or a single interview whether that person was going to be good or bad. You know, you need something like this institute, or you need something, you know, like this investment foundations program, um, or the Bloomberg certification, to at least give people pause and say, okay, they obviously show a little bit more commitment because, you know, they didn't just do courses, they also did these external certifications. So I don't know. Um, it's to your benefit. And the way, again, to study for this investment foundations one, which is the way I'm currently working through it, is I'm trying to give myself that in December I'm going to take the mock exams, and in early January that I'll take the legit exam. That's kind of how I'm planning it for myself. And it's just because that's when I know I'm going to have the most time to actually do it. It's really not that tough. If you just do it a little bit by little bit, it really is not that difficult. And I say that because right now I'm working in the accounting chapter, and I'm not an accountant. The last time I took an accounting class was 1996. So, I mean, I'm not by any means an accounting professional. But the learning ecosystem, right, the thing that's online that you work on this with, it goes through it pretty deliberately, and they give you enough practice questions. If you write down enough things, you should be able to do it, because the exam that you take to do this is all multiple choice. So you don't have to do a lot of innovative math to get this done. It's all multiple choice. So it is what it is. Okay. This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about inflation. And so again, I'll give you all of these slides. I'll post all of these slides. And can everyone still hear me pretty well? I'm just trying to
Yes.
hold the iPad up. Okay, good. Okay. So let's look at the traditional way that we look at inflation. And so the traditional way that we look at inflation, right, is CPI, Consumer Price Index. And it's the way you would have learned from me if you had 131 with me. It's the way that this is traditionally covered. And if you look at this data as it's spreading out over time, as we typically see during a pretty severe recession, you see these periods of deflation.
That's interesting.
And you see these periods of mild inflation. And you see these weird little instances where everyone thought there was going to be a recession and then there wasn't, which is kind of the best guess we have as a question mark there. But, you know, when you look at this, and as I was just trying to think through this is not what market professionals look at when they're trying to understand inflation. They're not looking at this. Because if we, sorry, if we look at this, do we actually have deflation around us right now? So this is just some kind of simple things I looked at here. Just look at all the things that you're buying right now, right? And the things that you're not buying. So when I just thought of myself, I'm not flying. I mean, this is last year I flew like 30,000 miles, I think, total. This year I flew to San Francisco way back in like January. I think that's what it was. Remember, it was like for those of you who had me for class, I did it in like one day to San Francisco and back. That's the last time I flew anywhere. And I'm not planning to fly anywhere the rest of the year. But if we look at that, right, airline fares down over 20%, right? I haven't stayed at a hotel in over a year, down almost 15%. Even the vending machine by my office, which was perennially empty, yeah, I mean, dude, I've got my pick of all the food I want in that vending machine. It's expiring faster than I can eat it. But on the other hand, my oldest son just turned 7. I tried to buy him a bicycle because he was just getting too big for the one he had. So his big birthday gift was going to be a new bike. It was like impossible to find one. The only place that had them on stock in the islands was McCulley's, right? Which is an expensive place to go to. You're seeing that big increase, right? Everyone's renting, right? Because they're moving out of their house and now they're renting somewhere else. Or they're using medical services more because we're in the middle of a pandemic. Now, what this means, right? Is that the CPI is a fixed basket. Which means, right, in this case, the assumption that's being made is that people are still flying as much as they always were, that they're still spending as much money as they always were, as compared to previous years, because that's what CPI does. It's a fixed basket. But that's not the case, right? Millions upon millions of people are not flying, as cheap as fares are.
Even the big problem with rent right now, people can't pay rent, so the whole entire real estate market's all screwed up right now.
Right, or even look on the islands, right? If you want to buy a house, right, the problem is inventory, not really so much prices. Right, and so we see this whole thing here, right? We look at cost of food at home, right? We're all buying frozen food. We're all buying food that we prepare at home, whereas restaurant meals, right? No one's doing that. Or even like simple things, right? Like my old Chromebook broke. I had to go try to buy a new Chromebook. It's like impossible to find a new Chromebook, right? Or if you do want it, you have to pay a pretty high price for the one that you're able to get, right?
Hey, Scheiding.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I saw a video on YouTube yesterday. This guy in Maui was filming 7 a.m. in the morning. This line of cars that had to have been at least like 15 blocks long of people people in their cars in line to receive food from the church.
Oh yeah.
How insane! I mean, we're at a point right now where people are struggling so bad that they're willing to wait in their car for forever just to get some canned food because
I'm thinking back to like and back in like April too, when we were kind of in the deep parts of the pandemic, and they had one of those food distribution points at Leeward. The backup on the highway to get into Leeward went all the way almost back to West Oahu. So I mean, like of people waiting again to get free food, and again, we're not talking about like name brand food, and no one likes taking a handout if they don't want to. Right. But still, there was that many people wanting to do it. So look at all. But
these people, these people are in like expensive cars and shit. It's just hilarious. Like
but and they have it from the different era, right? When you had 2 incomes and you could afford, to do those things. I mean, I even look. So in my case, my kids both go to private school, and for my youngest son who just started preschool, the preschool class typically has like 20 kids. There's only 10 kids in this class. And it's not because they didn't accept them. It's just because they can only find 10 people to actually,
Wow.
have the tuition and be willing to go. Yeah. But look at all these things too. So look at the things that are all going down in price, right? Work clothes, makeup, hotel rooms, air tickets, right? Whereas things like pajamas, bicycles, books, cameras, sewing machines, fabric. I don't know. My wife was suggesting that we go to that fabric store, that's out by I don't know. It's kind of like near Sand Island or something, or on the way to Sand Island. There's like a fabric store. It was like crazy in there. It was like for fabric. And here's the other thing that I thought all of you would like: higher education, which is typically where you saw the most inflation was in tuition. It's actually down this year. So it's kind of surprising when you look at it that way.
Tuition? College tuition?
Yeah, college tuition.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, so here's the thing is, do we believe this number?
No.
Exactly.
Never trust the government.
Well, in this case, you can trust the government, but it's actually the data that we're looking at. So I want to show it to you this way. So I'm going to go into Bloomberg. And if
There
any of
was
you are in
this,
Bloomberg,
Scheiding, there was this Austrian economist that I used to listen to a lot, and he would always like be against the CPI. He would say that the government would manipulate the basket to make them look like they're really growing, or inflation isn't as bad as it is, suppress it. I don't know if that's true or not, but
well,
I just remember him always saying that.
it's probably on the lines of I don't want to say conspiracy theory, and I don't want to say it's the most sacrosanct thing, but U.S. government data is actually all generated by civilian career statisticians, so the data is pretty reliable. Probably the biggest thing you have to worry about in terms of U.S. economic data is that it's released at a certain time, but that some people might get a hold of it earlier than others. That's probably the most concerning things for some. But in terms of how reliable the data is pretty reliable. About the only example we have of the data being unreliable was during the pandemic back in March or April, when we said that the unemployment rate was 16% or 14%, when in actuality it should have been over 20%. But it was because of the way they were forced to ask the question that meant that the data was coded in a way that they weren't counted as unemployed, even though they were.
Right.
The reason why was because they were basically asked, are you working right now? They would say no. They would say, are you planning to go back to work? And you'd be like, yeah, my employer just put me on temporary furlough, right? Meaning that I'd be going back to work as soon as things got better, right? But for many people, what ended up happening is that the employer put the person on furlough and then just never opened, right? Or opened for a little bit and then didn't give the person enough hours and the person quit, right? So we called it a furlough, meaning that they weren't counted as unemployed, when for all intents and purposes, they were unemployed. But okay, so let's look at this here. So I'm in Bloomberg, and I just typed in CPI into the search menu. And let's just make this look a little bit pretty here. We're looking at this over a 1-year time period. So this would be inflation over a 1-year time period, looking like this. Again, you would see that deflation existing, meaning that's getting at least pretty close to zero. The yellow dashed line you see is the inflation target here in the US, which is set at about 2%. Sorry, the yellow dashed line here is what we were at a year ago, which is 0.7. But we still would show some either close to deflation or at least decelerating prices. But what I'm going to do here, and what we can do both in Bloomberg, you could also do this in Federal Reserve Economic Database. You could also do this in Fred. But I'm going to compare this to personal consumption expenditures. Because in personal consumption expenditures, PCE,
That's what I'm looking at right now.
yeah. And then I want you to hone in on the last 6 months. Look at that divergence.
Right.
That divergence is important because what the PCE captures that the CPI does not is what are people actually buying. So the PCE, personal consumption expenditures, would actually be capturing people buying bicycles, people buying frozen food, people buying medical services, and people not buying airline tickets, not buying hotels, not buying work or food at work. And you see that divergence has really grown. And it grows. There's other points in time in which it's grown. But really what you see here is other notable periods of divergence, with the one being back in 2015. That's curious because that's exactly the point where we saw deflation in the CPI numbers. But if you look at the CPE numbers, in actuality, there was not. So the question then becomes one of like, what does the Federal Reserve look at? What data are they looking at? They fortunately are looking at PCE data. What we see is that the divergence is growing between CPI and PCE. The Federal Reserve itself actually does use the PCE data. So what the Federal Reserve has stated is that they want the long-term inflation rate as measured by PCE to be about 2% over the long term. So they're going to be looking at personal consumption expenditures to try to get a sense of, do they need to stimulate the economy or not? And that's the big part of my bullet point right here. Then the question is what do we expect is going to happen here? If the Federal Reserve has already told us that they're not going to do anything until PCE and measured inflation is 2%, then we need to then say, we need to ask ourselves, how is the Federal Reserve going to react to that? Especially if there's a divergence between the two, PCE and CPI. But here's another side of this. Why are we seeing this divergence? Why are we seeing the CPI being so different, the PCE being so different than the CPI? Part of the story is the supply and demand story, but part of it is also, it is all in essence a supply and demand story. But the question is why is it a supply and demand story? It actually becomes two reasons. Part of it is politics, and part of it is the pandemic, of why we're seeing this divergence in CPI and PCE, and why we think that the PCE may go up or may go down. And that's what, as an investor and as a policymaker, we need to be able to try to predict. The big money is going to be made on whether you predict this correctly or not. It obviously affects all of us, even in our everyday life. Again, I just put in an offer for a house, and I got quoted a 30-year fixed rate, and I have to decide, what do I do? Do I take the adjustable rate and try to predict that interest rates are going to go down even further? Or do I, think this is anomalous and that interest rates right now are lower than they are? I mean, I'm kind of testing the bounds of my knowledge even for my own personal benefit. So let's look at this. Politics versus pandemic. One of the concerns would be the extent to which stimulating the economy can cause inflation, right? So when we all had $1,200 sitting around in our pocket, we all bought more stuff, right? I just started selling on eBay much more back in March, and it's crazy, dude. People buy stupid stuff, and the only reason why people are buying stupid stuff from me is because it's not even on the shelves at the store, right? Like, I mean, this is gonna sound weird, right? But when you have a child, and even if you're using formula or whether you go the formula route or the non-formula route, you have to buy bottles, right? Because eventually, right, in most cases, the mother's got to go back to work and the child still needs to get milk, right? And the only way the baby's going to get milk is with a bottle. So the bottle's important, but what's really important is the nipple to the bottle. And like we had all these like extra ones from when our second child was born. And I was just like, oh, it's so crazy. Like, I'm not just going to throw these out. We never opened them. I'm just going to try to sell them. And they literally sold out in like 2 days. And I was just flabbergasted until I went to Target in Kapolei and I looked at the shelf and I saw they didn't even have any there. And then it made better sense to me of why people were buying it. Because people were buying it. There were 2 common locations where everyone was buying them from. Everyone was buying them based on they lived in upstate New York or they lived in Puerto Rico, one or the other. And that, I guess, it basically makes sense, right? Is that they weren't on the shelves and they were overpaying me because that was the only way they could get it. That's the essence of what inflation is. That's how you see this here, right? Is that you see that, to the extent that people could go out and do things during the pandemic, people were spending their $1,200, right? Well, they drove up the stock market because everyone had those $1,200 to play with, but also they were driving up prices of other things like bicycles and other things. Okay, just wait. I see one person wants to be admitted here. 1 second. Okay, let me go back to this here. So that's part of this is everyone's going to spend. So you're going to have inflation pressure caused by the fact that the government's spending more money. And you even see this not only in fiscal stimulus, but you also see this in monetary stimulus. I mean, I'm seeing it. Like, I mean, it's just crazy, right? I mean, again, I only went house hunting for 2 weeks, but it's crazy. I think not even just for the islands, but it's crazy what people are asking for houses that look really shitty. I'm not sure what sense to make of it beyond.
Are we in a bubble, real estate bubble?
I still do. I mean, I know it sounds kind of trite to say it because, in essence, there's an extent to which it was disproven. But Greenspan's statement of real estate bubbles are local is still pretty true. National housing crises. I wouldn't. Greenspan said they were impossible. I guess I would say they're rare. Because you look at on the islands, at least here, I mean, the problem, right, to some extent is my wife and I are both professionals, so we both have good credit scores and assets and income. So obviously we can get, a pretty decent mortgage at a pretty good rate. But, I have colleagues where, their professor salary is the only salary for their household, and they're able to get relatively the same mortgage, lending available to them. Obviously, we're not the same credit risks. We're not not bringing in the same income. And the only thing I can say that's somewhat crazy is I was offered up to 90% financing, right? Meaning I only put 10% down, and I didn't even have to pay a PMI, right? So I didn't even have to pay private mortgage insurance. I was just offered 90% financing. The only reason why you would offer 90% financing is, you're just hustling to get, to offer your capital. And the rate, when I tell you the rate that I was offered, it's crazy. 2.875, right? You're not even making money. A bank's not even making money on lending money at 2.875%. So it's really hard for me to understand it. Yeah.
It's down to two and a quarter now.
Yeah. See, for even a conventional mortgage, and if you can get down to 2.25, I don't see how, right? In real terms, if we know that the PCE, what we just stated here, let's go back to this. If we know that that is 2%, right? What we would do is, let's just take mine here, 2.875 for a jumbo mortgage, minus 2%. That in real terms, as a percent, they're not even making a single percent real rate of return, meaning that 0.875 is got to cover everything from having offices that sell the mortgage to having employees to covering the risk that I don't pay back my mortgage. If we're talking about low margin businesses, that's what monetary policy is created for. The mortgage business is a low margin business. And certainly if it's 2.25, that's even worse. But then we also see that the pandemic is also playing a part here, right? Because the pandemic is also creating artificial limitations or artificial increases in demand and supply, right? We're seeing it on simple things like Clorox and toilet paper and wipes, versus movie tickets, airline tickets, and hotels, right? The pandemic is causing inflationary and deflationary pressures as well. But it's also creating a situation where, right, we're talking kind of about the job market here. The one advantage you all have, right, is I suspect most of you are probably still willing to live at home, right? Most of you are probably willing to accept very little compensation if you were to just get a job, right? Which is the advantage you have over, someone who's even 28 years old. Because if you're 28 years old, right, you've got a fiance, maybe you're even married, maybe, you've gotten, you're pregnant, or you've gotten your fiance pregnant. Now you all of a sudden you can't take, a 25K per year job, right? Whereas, right, all of you who are doing this from your parents' house would be like 25,000, dude. I'll live in my parents' house and I'll just, eat their food for free.
Because think about it, if you choose a $25,000 job, right, but you have no overhead,
yeah,
in comparison to someone who, let's say, makes 70,000 but has so much overhead, it's kind of like breaking even almost.
Exactly. No, exactly. Even in my wife's profession, the competition, if anything, that she faces is, right, there are young college graduates, right, that do the job for free for 6 months or a year, right? But on the other hand, they're fresh-faced and don't have any industry experience. So fortunately, people don't trust them as well, right?
Right.
Because they don't have a lot of experience. But it's the same, right? When we talk about what your advantages are, is there's downward pressure on wages, right? And I even have to think about it, right? We have the professors. I'm a union steward, so that means that I'm one of the union reps for the faculty on the West campus. We're going to go there on Saturday. We're going to meet virtually, and they're probably going to say the governor is going to try to do furloughs in November, and they're probably going to say we're going to fight it. We're going to have pickets and all that stuff. But I'm going to approach it as an economist and say it only makes sense. There's got to be, now again, I'm an economist, but there's got to be enough people in other professions where you're probably getting at least some now, unemployed accountants, some unemployed marketing people, some unemployed, professionals that, are putting downward pressure on wages. Now, here's the thing, though, and this is the, I want to get through this, and then we'll take a break at that point. Are you done playing the piano?
Yeah, I'm going.
Take your water, drink some water.
No.
Okay. Okay. So when I look at this, and I try to make sense of what's going on in this market, it's actually really hard to make sense of whether we're going to get more fiscal stimulus or not. It seems pretty, seems to be pretty much the case that we're going to have to wait until after the election is done and we have, some settlement, whether Trump gets reelected or Biden gets elected. Either way, you need someone to win to be able to move forward at this point. But also, too, right, the Federal Reserve is very classically known as not being involved in politics, but they obviously are aware that politics exists. And the problem is that they're trying to coordinate their actions with what the federal government is trying to do. So it's really difficult because if all of a sudden we see inflation, right, that we see the PCE being higher than 2%, and then all of a sudden, let's just say, just throwing this out there as a scenario, let's say then that Biden gets elected and, AOC becomes Department of Energy secretary, right? And she does that green jobs thing, right? I'm just kind of throwing this out there, right? And so she does all the expensive things she wants, right? And then let's say Elizabeth Warren becomes, Department of Treasury, Secretary of Treasury, right? I'm trying to identify people that are kind of known as wanting to spend a lot of money, right? And let's say that Bernie Sanders becomes Secretary of the Labor. I don't know, right? This, putting it all out there, right? And all of these people go to Biden and say, we need to spend $1 bajillion, right? Some big amount, right? If you already have inflation as measured by the PCE, now it's going to be off to the races, right? Because now all of a sudden we're spending $1 bajillion, right? I'm making up a number here, right? We're spending $1 bajillion in stimulus. And now all of a sudden the Federal Reserve is going to be wow, we were at, let's say, 3% PCE as measured by inflation. Now we're going to be at 15% inflation. And it's the same thing that can be said for us on the islands, right? As much as some of you might like rail, I mean, rail did kind of destroy the economy in terms of construction inflation and inflation here on the islands the past 4 to 5, 6, 7 years. Yeah.
And it's not even done.
The
hardest part didn't even begin yet.
Although it's funny, for those of you who live on the west side would know, those things are lit up like no tomorrow. I don't know if any of you have seen the stations. They're lit up. If you drive down Fort Weaver Road, it's just lit up. Yeah, so I mean, so really that's the problem here, right? And that's what I see as the biggest investment risk right now. So when I have to think about, do I take on an adjustable rate mortgage or do I take a 30-year fixed? I'm almost tempted to take a 30-year fixed, if only because I think that the Federal Reserve and the federal government are going to do good cop, bad cop, right? And that one is going to like try to hold back the economy, and the other one's going to say we want to get reelected, or we want to be, let's just say in that scenario I painted out for you, we want to do the opposite of what Trump did, right? So we're going to spend all of this money to get reelected again. I'm not saying right politics is a different strategy, but right, if that happens, then we absolutely will have higher inflation. And then if I'm paying 2.875 and the inflation rate is 10%, right? Now Scheiding is good to go, right? Now I'm making the bank is losing and I'm winning.
Other than the Federal Reserve, which branch of government do you think has more effect on the economy, the legislative or executive?
Legislative by far, because I mean, if you look at what the executive has to spend, I mean, the legislative still has the power of the purse, right? So all that the executive can spend is what's already been apportioned to them by the Congress. So even I was just thinking of the thing. Remember when like Trump just did this thing where he was going to give everyone one of those like good RX cards, like right, everyone's going to have like a prescription savings card. He can only pay for that, give everyone $200 in free prescription drugs by saving money some other way. So like, but again, think about it. People in the House have to get reelected every 2 years. Senators have to get reelected every 6 years, right? And
so,
and again, it's going to be and plus, or go on, sorry.
I was just asking. The Federal Reserve is like predicting mostly the congressional elections right now more than the presidential. Would that be fair or no?
No, I mean, in some sense, at the federal, and so what I can say, certainly even for when I was part of District 7, when I worked at District 7, at the time, Greenspan was the chair, Bush the second was the president, and it was a Republican House. Sorry, it was a Republican House and a Republican Senate. So it was all three branches were Republican. Sorry, all two branches, legislative and president, and both houses and the president were Republican. I mean, we were all aware of who was president. We were aware of the, the narratives out there. But in some sense, the Federal Reserve still acted based on the data they were seeing, not what they thought was going to happen in the future. So the Federal Reserve, just kind of we looked at last week. Remember when we were looking at like the forecast and what people were predicting the inflation rate was going to be? Actually, let's go back to that. I think I can go back to that. Was that this week? Maybe it was earlier. Was it here? No, it wasn't here. So I'm just trying to find. That's all right. I'm not gonna focus on. But some of you may remember when I showed you that Federal Reserve estimate of what the inflation rate was going to be out through 2024. I'm just looking through my photos here to see if I can find it here. 1 second, everybody. One second. I can't find it now, but when we go on break here in a little bit, I'll find it. But basically, they're just going to look at the data and they're going to make a forecast. Right now, if the Federal Reserve had to make a decision about what they thought was going to happen to inflation, I think they would still remain rather committed to the 2% PCE over the long run. But again, it can just so easily be blown up in 2021 if, people are put into office that want to spend a lot of money. I would agree, Pierce. I would absolutely agree. Hey, buddy. There you go. Okay. So let's go. So that's what the investment challenge is right now. You did it. This is what the investment challenge is. For those of you wondering what the challenge is it's a big game of chicken, right? It's a big game of chicken. Who is going to, blow up the system first to everyone's disadvantage? It's probably not going to be the Federal Reserve, right? It's probably going to be someone trying to get elected. And that's what I say here. It's probably going to be that the things that happen incorrectly, right? So let's say that Trump gets reelected, but the Democrats take both the House and the Senate, right? Then you're probably going to get no stimulus, right? Even if the economy needs it, no one's going to do anything because no one's going to get the credit, right? I think we could all agree about that. What if Biden wins and it's Republican House and Republican Senate, right? Then there'll still be no stimulus, right? Right? Or, right? What if the Democrats sweep, right? What if the Democrats take the House and the Senate and Biden wins? Some of you might be cheering on election night if that happens, but as an investor or someone trying to predict inflation rates, that might be a very bad thing because now you got the opposite situation. Too much stimulus, right? What if, let's put this out there, right? Which is also not to be, what if Biden wins, the House goes Democrat, the Senate goes Democrat, and Biden installs a new Federal Reserve chair, right? That's more akin to, lots of stimulus, right? Again, it can all go bad, right? What if Trump wins and he gets the Senate and he gets rid of Jerry Powell and he gets like a gold standard person in there that he wants that's coming from the Cleveland Fed? You're going to have too little stimulus. So that's what I worry about as an investor, is that the challenge here is coordinating the fiscal side and the monetary side. And it's just really difficult to do that. Okay, here's the last thing I want to do before we take a break. I want to go back to Bloomberg here. So I can use the, there's a number of things I can use here. I could use treasuries, I could use tips. Let's just look at this here. So see, we're seeing some Pierce, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's funny, not to focus on my child here, but I give him my phone to use, and generally he's supposed to then watch like YouTube Kids. But if I look at the app and I see him on the McDonald's app or the Costco app for some reason. He really likes the Costco app. And he sees that I see him looking at it. He like screams and then like quickly changes the app that he's looking at. So I think he's gonna something interesting. He's gonna have an interesting life. So let's just look at this here. This is the inflation expectations looking at the tips. Huh? I'm about to take a break. That's okay. So last thing I want to do here before I take a break here is if we look at the inflation expectations here, and this is kind of driven by the tips, we see, and again, expectations of 3% inflation. Maybe that's what the banks are expecting as well when they offer, right, 2.25 or 2.875 or something along those lines. But again, I don't think there's a lot of money to be made in that business, and the margins must be pretty low because right now, look at how this is markedly increased in 2020. Even though we don't think of it, 2020 has been a year of expectations of inflation rising, and certainly COVID and the fiscal stimulus, and especially the monetary stimulus, incredibly fueled that. I mean, look at how obviously April being that month, and we looked at this in terms of the balance sheet, where the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve just explodes, and that just drives everything else up. And that's what you're seeing here. Okay, I want you to chew on that. You can play with Bloomberg in the meantime as well. It's 6:15. Why don't we take 15 minutes here? So we'll resume this at 6:30. I'm going to pause the recording and I'm going to mute and stop my video. And then at 6:30, I'll start the recording and come back on again.
Okay.
Okay. Wait for people to, well, you guys will all come in as usual. Waiting.
Hey,
Okay.
Shining. So I've been analyzing economic indicators
Yeah.
for the U.S. through the Bloomberg terminal, and I just
Yeah.
want to know what your thoughts are about the PMI currently.
It's okay.
On the optimistic side.
Let's look at this one. So PMI is useful. When we say PMI, we're talking about the Purchasing Manufacturers Index. Not the. Yeah, and so here we can kind of see so what PMI does for us, the role that PMI plays is that it's useful for getting a sense of how optimistic firms are for what the future of the economy is going to look like. And so obviously we can see that great deal of pessimism initially during the pandemic, and you see that resurgence more as of late. What else are you seeing, Levi, that's interesting you? Do you want to, or what do you see?
Okay, so it seems like analysts are predicting, they're pretty pessimistic with their estimates. They're thinking that we're going to deflate when we're actually slightly inflating. And well, I don't look at GDP.
What are you looking at? What are you looking at specifically?
I'm looking at
Sorry, Levi, did you say something, or what are you looking at?
oh, can someone hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Basically, I was looking at the economic the equal function, and I selected.
Yep.
I was looking at like like actuals, priors, and like what people were predicting.
Yep.
Basically, what
So just to review what Levi did here, Levi did a pretty good thing here. He looked at ECO, the econ feature, just to get a sense of what is coming up on the calendar, what's being released. Yeah, we could look at things like retail sales here. Yeah, manufacturing, CPI year over year for various countries, inventory levels. Yeah. What specific, are you looking at a specific statistic that we can look at?
Yeah, let me go find it. But I basically used the eco US function. I'm not sure how that would work on the iPad though, because I had that.
It works the same way.
ECO US.
Yep. No, sorry.
I think there's a space between those two.
1 second, everyone. What'd you say, Fawn? Pierce doesn't or Truman doesn't? Okay. Yeah, we'll still be awake. We will be awake. We'll be okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Okay.
Wow, the iPad version looks way different.
What does?
I said the iPad version looks quite different.
No, it does. Yeah, and I'm not really happy about looking at it this way. It's I don't typically look at it this way, so it's a little bit. But even look at this, right, gang? Everyone. I mean, I just kind of talked about this, right? I mean, we're seeing the same kinds of inflationary pressures in 2020. They're all emerging because of both, well, not really as much anymore fiscal stimulus, but certainly monetary stimulus. And you're seeing that with an article like this. I mean, look at those rates: 9.2%, 7% Seattle, 6% Charlotte. I mean, that's crazy. So I don't know. Going back to what Russell was saying about there being a bubble, I don't know. It sounds pretty bubble-ish, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, without trying to. As
Could I share my
screen? Yeah, do you want to share your screen? Let me go and have you share your screen. Okay, Levi, you should be the host now. Yeah, so this is a much more comfortable way of looking at it, much better way of looking at it. And again, if you see here what Levi did here, he just typed in the function ECO that gives us all the econ data that he can then sort through. And again, as you'll see here, as he looks to the right, he can see surveyed versus actual. It's giving him a sense of what the sentiment was versus the actual numbers.
So I think I was looking at, I think this is US PMI, right?
Yeah, so ISM manufacturing, ISM new orders. I mean, look at that. You're consistently seeing here index numbers that are less than the actual. So either people were too pessimistic, right? Or things are becoming better than we thought.
Yeah. So here's the jobless claims. People were, once again, people were being a little too pessimistic. 950K to 881.
Well, no, that would be the opposite. For that one, it would be more people are unemployed, or more people are jobless than was expected. Wait.
Wait,
Yeah,
these
sorry.
are.
No, you're right. You're right. Nope, you're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
And then let's see. Of course, unemployment rate better than we predicted.
Yep.
And then another thing I was looking at was, I don't know. I feel like this is more helpful to look at rather than month over month. But
Oh,
you're
it
a
is.
pretty guy.
And you can click on the chart where you can chart it out too if you're interested.
So let's that.
So now do the comparison with CPE. So add in CPE. Well, you don't have to add it in, but type in CPE and get us a line chart for CPE.
CBE. Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Let's see. How do I add a chart?
You would go edit chart. See in the upper right hand corner.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Oh.
And then you should be able to. Yep.
You want this one?
Yep. No. You want CPE EXE MUY index, I think.
This one? The Eurostat Zone Core?
The third one, the one that's in gray. I think. Yeah. I think.
2020.
And then, yeah, I was gonna say change the
6-month period.
Yeah, I think this is accurate because basically we only have CPE data out through end of July or August.
Yeah.
So again, this is the power of the Bloomberg function here that we can actually see exactly. We can kind of see what's going on here.
Yeah, seems like just a huge jump since May.
So I guess the other thing would be try looking at on yours on your side of the Bloomberg. Type in inflation expectations. Let's try to see if we can get the scatter plot from the Federal Reserve. Type in inflation. Wait, hey, go down there. Hey, look at the news right there. Wait, go back. Go back. Look at that. See, no hike until 2025. Yeah, that. That's exactly what we're talking about right now, right? Yeah, so there we want summary of economic projections. Right? So it's exactly what we're talking about right now. Dude, look at that. Look at that. When does it cross above 2%? 2025, 2026, 2027.
That's a pretty long recovery.
We'll all be old people by then.
Wow. To think we're at around 2%.
For everyone in the class that's still watching this, read the last bullet point. Fed projections generally do not incorporate fiscal policy. Right? And that's the unknown. That last bullet point is the unknown. Right? Because if in a month from now we find out that, let's say, Trump wins, but the House and the Senate go Democrat, right? That's going to be gridlock, right? And you might think, well, that's pretty bad, right? We should have Biden win everything, right? The Democrats win everything, or we should have the Republicans win everything. But that's bad too, right? I mean, look at what all Republicans in office, right? You got the Trump tax cut, which blew up the deficit and really got you a lot of stimulus, you know? So, right, and fuels inflation. So it's so politics obviously does play a role here. It's just really hard to for the Federal Reserve to act on that, and that's kind of what that last bullet point points out. Okay, I'm gonna take. Let's see. Can I take back hosting duties, or do you have to give it back to me? I think you have to give it back to me.
Sure. Hold on, working on it.
No worries. Oh man, your computer's like heating up right now, huh? Probably pretty upset with you.
Oh, can you hear it?
No, I'm just predicting it's upset with you.
Oh, no. Actually, the cooling system is pretty strong now because I actually replaced it recently.
Oh.
But I had to do it because of the whole melting thing that happened.
Yes.
After I fixed the problem, then now it's good at cooling.
Nice.
The webcam is still like busted, but I can at least share my screen and stuff. I have actually had Bloomberg open for majority of the time for this
Hey,
class.
do you want a webcam for free? Do you need one?
Sure. I mean,
Let me
it's
know.
really not
Let
free.
me know the next time you're near campus or on campus, so I can give it to you. Do you
Sure.
work still? Are you at the factory still?
Yeah, I am, but only on the weekends.
Okay.
Yeah, just only on the weekends.
Okay. Okay. I'm back to host. Okay. I'm gonna go back to this. Sorry for all of you having to endure the banter between Levi and I. I'm just trying to hook him up with a free webcam if he wants one. Okay. Let's go back to this. Now, I'm going to conclude today's lecture by just talking about a really cool paper I was reading yesterday into today. You know how we've been kind of talking about, so if any of you want to read this, just type in NBER paper 27866. If you can't get a hold of it, the PDF, just let me know. UH Manoa does subscribe to it, so if you guys can't find it for free on the web, I can get it for anyone. It's actually a really cool paper. You know how like the past few weeks we've been kind of talking about how investment professionals know more than those stupid like Robinhood investors, and like those Robinhood people are such dummies, like they're just like ruining the market. Well, this paper actually found that actually people using Robinhood and picking stocks that are most volatile, they're actually able to beat the market. So it was a really cool paper. What it did is they used RobinTrack to basically look at what everyone was in, right? So there's like crazy things that Robinhood people were in, like Hertz and like cannabis, Canopy Growth, that kind of stocks. But what they found was that on a risk-adjusted basis, also on a risk-unadjusted basis, they beat it. Now the question would be is why, right? They're clearly, because if they're looking at PE ratios and they're doing, a fundamental analysis, it's unclear why they would be finding that to be the case. But what's interesting, right, is that like much of the market, it's driven more by the crowd sentiment than it is the technical analysis, right? So it helps explain why Hertz does so well, right? Is that everyone was crowding into that trade, so it did well, even though the company was in bankruptcy and shouldn't have been issuing new shares, right? And what it means is that right? is that maybe we should believe the crowd wisdom, basically. Maybe we should all be on the message boards and trying to track what everyone's doing, because that would give us a sense of where the market's going. So as much as like Tesla doesn't make any sense to me, or Zoom doesn't make any sense to me, maybe we should be getting into it because everyone else is. Or right, we should be tracking the options market for these things to get a good sense of, what the general sentiment, to get a good general sense of what the sentiment is. So it was an interesting paper for whether we should trust the professionals or not. And basically, what we're seeing, Pierce, what are you doing? Get out of that. It gives us a general sense that crowds, especially in this case, might know best. And that's certainly what that article tried to highlight here. I'm going to go back to, so that finishes my slides. Go on.
Does this also mean that maybe that the crowds have a bigger slice of the pie than we have all thought? And we thought, oh,
No.
they're
So in terms of, well, no, in terms of the volume, I mean, the investment professionals have the most volume of the money. And they even have probably most of the, Pierce, what are you doing? Get out of that. Get out of that.
This means that the crowd sentiment was better educated than we previously thought.
Yeah, that's good, Pierce. Good job, Pierce.
Sorry, I was saying that the crowd sentiment is probably better educated than we thought.
No, it's not saying that, but it's basically saying that what's driving the volatility is crowd sentiment. And if you're following the crowd, you're probably going to win, right? Rather than trying to go against the crowd.
Oh, I see.
With this equity being a perfect example of, if you have exposure to this, then you're going with the crowd. If you don't, then you're trying to go against the crowd.
What about that whole SoftBank thing though, where they just like bought up all the options and then left us holding the money bag? That's kind of like crappy right now. Like, how does that tie in with the crowd sentiment? Wasn't the share price increasing because of that rather than this crowd sentiment, or is there like a combination of both? Oh, did I make him disconnect? Uh-oh. Oh, Shining, you there?
Yeah, I'm back now. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. Okay. Okay, let's go back to this. Sorry, let me go back to this.
And then as you explain Tesla as your example, could you also tell us how SoftBank ties into all this?
Yeah. Let's look at that.
Didn't they do the whole stock options like trick on us? So like, how did
in terms of this, yeah.
How did that tie into
the
crowd?
I just don't make. So I'm looking at this just as we're kind of talking here, as I'm doing this here. What is that Sumitomo Mitsui Trust? That's a large insurance company, isn't it? Sumitomo Mitsui.
Hold on.
Isn't it a large life insurance company? Or no? Maybe it's not.
So it's not exactly life insurance. It's more broad. It's like a institution or retail type of debt instruments or financial instruments.
Curious, you gotta try it.
Let's see. We have asset management, products to retail and wholesale customers, brokerage, real estate services. So pretty much, it's kind of as the name implies, you trust them to hold your money for some reason, in some way, for some purpose. And since it's retail, could be for smaller customers. I'm not sure what wholesale customer would be. I only know this in terms of retail and commercial. Is that like a commercial customer?
I'm guessing so, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like Bank of Hawaii in Japan, but less on the banking, more in like the financial instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Shouting Andrew's trying to get back in.
Oh, thanks for telling me. Okay. Let me go back to this. So I was just trying to look at the it's just hard to look at it on the app. Can Levi, I'm gonna throw the hosting duties to you. Can you call up the options on Tesla so I can see it?
Hold on, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm gonna make you the host here.
You said you want stock options?
Yeah, those are the options for it.
What?
This is what you're looking for?
I'm just kind of looking at this, just seeing. What do you think, Russell? You do a lot of this. You're in this space quite a bit.
For some reason, the option chain on Bloomberg looks very odd to me compared to the option chain on Thinkorswim. It's like kind of confusing looking. But what were you asking?
Yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to hit your sense of like what you thought of the. I mean, it just looks like there's more. I mean, the crowd. As we talk about crowd sentiment here, the crowd sentiment saying it's going to keep going up.
Like I said, like I don't have any directional bias. As far as Tesla, Elon could say something tomorrow that can boost the stock up or down. So I kind of stay away from Tesla, to be honest.
Click on the Levi. Click on the calls.
But they're very liquid and they're very volatile, which makes.
So that's absolutely correct. They're very liquid here.
Yeah, they're one of the most number one traded options.
Look at the volume on that. The volume is pretty high.
Yeah, I don't trade any option under at least 200-300. I don't trade. So if there's at least 500 or more contracts being traded at that strike, I'll trade it.
All right, because you're going to make money on the volume.
Yeah, the less volume it has, the wider the bid-ask spread, and the harder it is to get in and out of the position. So,
All right, no,
so
exactly.
the more liquid it is, the easier it is for me to trade it.
So that's about going out about 2 weeks, 10/16. Scroll down a little bit more.
You want to
This
go
would
to like
be,
December?
yeah, sure.
Sorry, this is my first time looking at the options part of the equities.
So you've
I
got
don't-
your strike price on the far left.
Okay. This is like the expiration date?
That would be the
And it's
strike
just
date.
calls. He's just looking at the calls right now.
I'm just looking at the call side.
So you have to execute it on this day or by this day?
By that date.
When you're on the phone with your boys, you guys sound retarded too. Everyone's sound retarded.
And then
Okay.
what are these right here?
So that would be.
Ask.
Go on.
Why?
So if you click the bid, you're selling. If you click the ask, you're buying.
Okay. What is last?
The last is just the
Last
last price it was traded at. But you don't, when you're trading, you don't look at the last. You either look at the bid or the ask. So like, let's say you think Tesla's going up, you can buy the what you're on right now, the 400 ask, 77.25. You can click that and you can buy that call. And then if Tesla goes up, you make money. If Tesla goes down, you lose money. But if you were to click that ask and buy that call costs $7,000 and $7,725. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
Because you can only buy it in packs of 100, right?
Yep.
Yeah. One contract equals 100 shares. So
You see it,
multiplier
where's
is
the
100.
C size? That's contract size 100.
Yeah, I was looking at that. And then what does R stand for? 0.23?
That would be the amount of variation.
Risk-free rate.
The risk-free rate. Yep. The variation.
Right. Implied for.
Pick your character so I can wipe you guys all that trade.
Interesting. Yeah. First time looking at this options screen.
Again, this is the power of the system too, right? You're not going to break it, so it's good to just play around with this. And when you get to that equities, module in Bloomberg, you're gonna see more about this as well.
Yeah, I just haven't hit that part yet.
I actually learned quite a bit about foreign exchange from the currencies module.
Yeah, probably gonna hit that one next. I did terminal basics too because I felt like I just need to know how to navigate in general.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna hit that next. I just only covered the econ part so far.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just try look at this one. Can I go any further in to show me more? No, I guess not.
Well, let's look at a volatile one. Let's look at snow.
Okay. This one?
I don't even think Snow has options, does it?
No, but I want to see what the I don't think it would. Oh, wait, I guess it would start to. Yeah.
Here you go.
Oh yeah, they do. That's crazy.
Volume seems kind of meh.
Wow. Certainly growing more than Tesla, actually. At least the market thinks so.
Yeah, this options seem pretty limited on this one compared to Tesla. I mean, that's it.
Oh. Interesting.
cheapest one.
Go to Center Strike. So some people are thinking that a lot of the growth has already happened, I guess, at this point. Or at least a year out.
Want to see further out?
Yeah.
This is as far as it goes.
Well, I guess it's hard to predict all the way up to 2023. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's the thing here. I guess, kind of to conclude for today's lecture, I'm going to kind of be playing around a little bit more with Bloomberg and looking at these functions. I'd encourage all of you just to, again, just play around with this. You can't really, if you get on the screen and you don't know what's going on, you can go right to the help. You can add that question mark and get a good sense of what's going on the screen. Or you can even ask me and just share your screen with me. And I'm more than happy to kind of walk you through kind of what's going on.
Also, if you press F1 at any part you're at, it'll give you a help on like what you're looking at currently. So let's say I'm here, right, and I'm like, what the hell am I looking at? Like,
exactly.
Boom! It gives me like, you can like learn what this is about, what it's telling you, how to use it. I mean, it's a little bit of information overload, but at least it gives you somewhere to start kind of
Well,
look.
what's nice is you scroll up and down, right? You get the definitions, but you also have it like highlighting for you what it means on the screen when you get to that point, like it is doing right there. Exactly.
There.
Yep.
Data analysis, calculations. So, and if you have, I'm not sure if anyone wants to talk to someone who's an IT person, but you can press it twice. F1 is the help button. So if you need help, just press F1, and then
it's not just IT. They also just have people on the desk that are actually the finance professionals that would come on and talk to you about it too. So it's not just IT.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So.
And then apparently, I mean, I just learned this today, but apparently if you can also search things with F1 and it'll use like an algorithm to try to figure out.
It's a Google type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, try to figure out what exactly you mean and the best way to show you what you want.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'm pretty much done. I'm going to keep working through the modules on Bloomberg. Again, my goal is to try to get that done in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I would encourage you all to do the same. I would encourage you all to do the same. I'm going to look at the progress that everyone's making at some point. I'm going to hope that if enough people are making progress on it, then I don't need to do a midterm. If I don't see enough progress on everyone, I'll have to come up with some sort of midterm. So let that be an incentive to start working on the aspects where you need to get to the certification point. Otherwise, I'll just give everyone a hard deadline of you need to finish it by a certain date. But again, my general sense is...
What was that hard deadline for, Shadi?
No, I'm not giving a hard deadline yet. Nope, I just want to do encouragement at this point. I want to encourage everyone to do it on their own. I don't want to give a hard deadline at this point.
You're referring to the Bloomberg modules that
yep, exactly.
BMCs
yep.
that we're supposed to be working?
Yep, I don't want to give a
Sorry,
deadline.
Shadi, it's kind of hard to hear you.
Yep, I don't want to give a deadline at this point. I just want to encourage people to do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, Shadi, is there anything else that we're supposed to absolutely be doing in addition to the BMC?
Well, you need to be logging into the CFA Institute website and kind of, again, familiarizing yourself and hopefully at least working through the initial chapters and the initial modules, which are easier because that's like ethics and regulations and the introduction.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Okay.
Those
Yep,
two.
that's it. So I'm going to post all this, and I'll see some of you on Thursday, and some of you I'll see next week. Okay. I will.
Yeah, Shading.
Shutting. Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Bye. Thank you.
See ya. I will log off last.
Shining.
Yeah.
We're gonna do our phone con tomorrow.
That's
So I
right.
haven't gotten a chance to read chapter 1 yet.
I'm actually, I haven't either.
You want to play up the ear? Maybe shoot for Friday.
Yeah, let's
That
play it
work
by
for you?
ear, because if I don't read it, there's not a lot of. I mean, if we both haven't read it, there's not a lot of point to discussing it.
Right.
Yeah, we can play it by ear, but I should be free to talk about it when you are.
Okay.
Okay.